Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? I just remembered I'm supposed to turn the microphone on in order to broadcast this show. Okay. Well, here's everything is working. Thumbs up from Justice. And, well, everything's working, at least on the mechanical side. Greg Dworkin will be here to tell us whether things were working over the weekend. And looking forward to the week to come, and we'll find out whether anything's going to work. I have a feeling it's not at operating at optimum levels. A couple of messages here from Armando, and whenever there's an issue that demands Armando's time on the air, something is going wrong. That's basically what's happening here. And he's, I guess, a little miffed about what we're finding out, which I guess we already had found it out last week, but it's becoming increasingly obvious that Democratic senators getting set to handle the impeachment trial, the second impeachment trial, amazingly enough, of Donald Trump later this week. Tomorrow, I guess, the trial begins in earnest. And I don't know. We've, I guess, not succeeded in getting through to them that they can move these trials to committee. And they seem bound and determined to essentially rush through the trial, jettison the whole thing, because they know they won't be able to get any Republicans to vote for conviction, or perhaps one or two, but not enough to get to conviction. So now they're of the mindset that the whole thing's a waste of time, and what are you going to do? So what? You know, I mean, people don't care. They attacked the Capitol and tried to assassinate the entire legislative branch and hang the vice president, and they killed cops, and, you know, that was last week. So they'll do a quick trial, and I guess once again, I guess this is what's becoming infuriating for Armando. Of course, we impeached Donald Trump this time last year, and we were certain that the outcome would have been different. I don't know if anybody really believed that he was going to be convicted at that point, but certainly there would be more Republican votes for it, because it would be impossible to get out from underneath the weight of the evidence if we had just been allowed to bring witnesses. But no, Republicans in control of the Senate voted to deny Democratic House managers the ability to call witnesses to help make their case. Now, of course, Democrats in charge in both chambers, and that problem is solved. But guess what? They might also just opt themselves not to bring witnesses. So this is going to do fantastic things. Going to do wonders for, of course, that segment of either ultra right or ultra left who are convinced that there's no difference between the two parties. Anyway, that'll clear things up pretty quickly. And I don't think, again, that it's likely to change the outcome in terms of conviction, but it sure would be better to really make the case. And I feel like a lot of people really deserve to have that case made, like maybe some of the people who were dead, for instance. Not so much necessarily the various rioters who got themselves killed in various stupid ways. Despite the fact that it has been disputed that one guy accidentally tasered himself to death in the crotch. That was a very big disappointment to find out that was being disputed, but I'm not certain whether I believe the dispute on that one. You know what? We never did get to make mention, at least. By now you would have seen it all over Twitter by now, but I'm sure. But if not, the equally amazing story of the woman who showed up at the assault on the Capitol, who was, of course, trampled to death in the crowd. I had to figure somebody was going to be trampled to death in that crowd. And the rather amazing story that she had been photographed at the rally, photographs having been published, carrying, of course, if you had to carry a flag at a rally like that, well, if I just stop it there, of course she was carrying a Trump flag. Well, no, she wasn't. So that's hint number one. Hint number two is that she was trampled to death, and I think you've probably arrived at the understanding that she was carrying the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. The one thing I actually asked for in all this, right? What are their demands? They used to say of Occupy Wall Street, who didn't trample or kill anybody, as far as I recall. So what does this weird, seething, surging crowd really want besides to overthrow democracy or stop the count? And the answer is clearly written on the flags: "Don't tread on me." And they wouldn't even honor her last request. I found that very tragic, to say the least. All right. Well, anyway, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Perhaps we could talk a little bit about that. We are very rapidly approaching the 500,000 mark in terms of deaths from the pandemic. All of this, of course, still on the shoulders of Donald Trump in terms of responsibility. It's still going to be another couple of days to week or so before we get to the possibility of anybody dying who contracted the disease after the inauguration, as though the virus cared one way or the other who was president at the time. Virus was happy to infect and possibly kill anybody it could, no matter who the president is. Very apolitical in that sense. Anyway, many things to round up. Armando will join us later on to rant and rave about the upcoming impeachment trial, which is very appropriate. But for now, Greg Dworkin, probably not. I don't know if we're going to rant and rave, Greg. I haven't had a chance to look at the raft of stories. They don't look very ranty or ravey, just regular, I think. How are you this morning?
Well, we're back to regular order here. And yes. Besides, it's Monday. So Monday is more chaotic than it is ranty ravey. Ranty ravey is Thursday.
Yes, okay. When we've seen the results of the chaos. I'll take that.
Exactly. So, I didn't know exactly which direction we were going to go, but let's start with the impeachment stuff. Not the important stuff Armando's going to cover and why it really ought to be committee and witnesses and stuff, but right. More the reaction from the senators to set the stage, set the table for him. Daniel Dresner tweets this morning about a Politico article. Article, which he screen captured, says, but they see the outcome of the trial, which begins on Tuesday, that would be tomorrow, as a reflection of Trump's viability and influence in the GOP moving forward. And they believe a conviction, which would require the support of at least 17 Republicans, would simply embolden Trump and enrage his base in a way that hurts the party in 2022 and 2024. He does a pretty good job of being a victim. A GOP senator who requested anonymity to candidly address the fact, I'm adding this, that he's a coward. If he were to be convicted, there'd be an uproar among his supporters, and it would probably energize him. Dresner read that and said, look, these senators have been elected to office, and I haven't. But that said, I keep reading paragraphs like this and thinking they're morons. It was just last year when Trump and his supporters were energized after he wasn't convicted. Now they're going to be energized because he was. And so, this is the whole thing about you can't convict him because he's in office. And now you can't convict him because he's not in office. You can't impeach him because that's improper because he's there and he was elected by the people. But now that he's out, you can't do it because reasons, Right. And so it's always something. There's always some reason why I can't do what you want because I really don't care about any of your issues.
Oh.
Getting trampled to death, cops dying, sedition, insurrection, riots, death, guns in the Capitol, theft of my office. The important thing is, how does this affect me in the 2022 primary and all this other crap you keep bringing up? It's just a pain in the butt, and I have to talk to my constituents and pretend that it's somehow meaningful, so I'm going to do this anonymously.
I guess it is. I don't know what to tell you. It's incredibly frustrating. Don't want to worry about any primaries because of course, your job is to keep your seat where they'll hang you when you get there.
Now, the only thing I can say in the Democrats' defense at this particular point in time, because Armando's completely right about needing witnesses and doing it by committee, is that there probably will be gavel-to-gavel coverage on television.
Yeah.
And there will be videos, and there will be plenty of public record stuff that has been said. I'm sure as the reports are starting to come out that the House managers are frustrated that it's not longer and more. But you really do have to ask the question, with so many other things going on, what's enough and what's too much? And I'd be more into like detailed hour by hour, minute by minute listing of everything Trump did had I not watched the first impeachment.
Yes.
Which at times was pretty boring.
Oh.
And not everybody is equally gifted at presenting stuff in a short manner. I was riveted by Adam Schiff. Other people had really nice little small bits, but after piling it on and piling on and piling it on, it's pretty obvious that he's guilty, and it's also pretty obvious that they don't want to do anything about it. I get the frustration on the part of the Democrats.
Yeah.
So to make it a TV show and do what you can, is obviously their choice. I don't think it's the right choice, but it's a choice, and we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah, it's their choice. And also frustrating, of course, is the way they justify it. We've seen this before in other contexts, but the subject changes. But generally speaking, senators do this, and they make decisions about how they need to do things, and they tell you why they need to do things. And if you learn too much, like just a little bit about how things work, you say, oh, but you don't actually have to do that. I read that that's not actually the way it has to work. Nice talking.
You could do it this other way.
Right.
Which
nice
makes
talking to you.
if not more sense.
You don't understand.
What about that, Senator?
I have to go now, and I'm very busy as a senator. Good. Have a nice day. Thank you for contacting my office.
Yeah, pretty much. So what does seem to be settled is the idea that the entire GOP defense is ridiculous. This is a story about a story. The pre-story is from the New York Times. Breaking with GOP, top conservative lawyer says Trump can stand trial. Charles J. Cooper, who's not writing in the New York Times, he's writing in the Wall Street Journal. Oh. A stalwart of the conservative legal establishment said that Republicans were wrong to assert that it is unconstitutional for a former president to be tried for impeachable offenses.
Right.
In an opinion piece posted on the Wall Street Journal's website, the lawyer, Charles Cooper, who's closely allied with top Republicans in Congress, dismissed as illogical, I think he's like super close to Rand Paul, illogical the claim that it is unconstitutional to hold an impeachment trial for a former president. The piece came 2 days before the Senate was set to start the proceeding in which Mr. Trump is charged with incitement of insurrection. And since the rampage, Republicans have made little effort to excuse Mr. Trump's conduct, but have coalesced behind the legal argument about constitutionality as the rationale for why he shouldn't be tried, much less convicted. Their theory is that because the Constitution's penalty for an impeachment conviction is removal from office, it was never intended to apply to a former president who's no longer in office, and many, if not most, legal scholars disagree with that. And Chuck Cooper's subheading here kind of sums up his point. Removal from office is best understood as akin to a mandatory minimum sentence for a crime.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So you have to do this. Point. That's the least you could do.
Truly, yes. I don't know. I understand, of course, the problem of getting through it in a political sense, but yeah, it really does feel like you owe it to the rest of us to conduct something that's going to, pay attention to this for more than a day or two.
Right.
Nice.
And meanwhile, it's worth, and I hope Armando goes into this a little more detail. I know he's going to do, the procedure and what should be done, but take a look at Trump's defense lawyers. This one struck me. This is from the Washington Post. One guy has a habit of defending mobsters. Okay, but his second defense attorney, a fellow named Bruce Castor from Pennsylvania, this one's a Washington Post story. Bruce Castor is a magnet for controversy. Naturally, he's Trump's impeachment attorney, somebody who loves attention and so on and so forth. But the thing to be reminded of, if you didn't know or if you forgot, is Bruce Castor is the district attorney who refused to indict and prosecute Bill Cosby.
Oh.
15 years ago,
weird.
when all this stuff started to come out.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of that as a conservative position necessarily, but it does make us wonder about his judgment. Yeah.
Right. He became famous nationally for what he didn't do, prosecute Bill Cosby in 2005 when Andrea Constand accused the television icon of sexual assault. And so just a reminder that he doesn't always choose well.
I guess not. What a strange thing, though, for him to say, you know what, I'll pass on this celebrity prosecution. That would seems like the sort of thing that they would love to do. Yeah,
you'd think.
That's very odd.
As you go on in your career and that's your jam, I suppose, that's all you do.
I guess.
So when everybody else got fired, he was just waiting for the phone to ring saying, I'll do it.
Okay.
Well, and apparently,
now he'll do something.
A relative of his works at a low-level legal job in the administration, so was the conduit for my cousin will do it. He'll do anything.
Right.
I know. Let Mikey eat it. Let's see how it goes.
I guess so. Jeez. All right. I'll let Mikey try the case. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So
cereal, but
it's bad, but it is what it is. I thought I would interject and let Armando handle the rest of the impeachment stuff, but that was the stuff that was on my plate about impeachment. Okay. Let's talk about process a little bit, because parallel to the impeachment is also getting this COVID relief package done.
Right. Instead of the impeachment to it. Okay, yes.
It's not instead of impeachment, because right now this is committee work, and a lot of the committee work has to be in the House because it's like a money bill.
Oh, all right. I see what you mean.
Right? So there are 9 House committees. I'm reading from a Punch Bowl
there are plenty.
Newsletter, which is not online. 9 House committees will begin work this week on marking up the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, with a goal of having the full reconciliation package on the floor by the week of February 22nd.
What are we at? 2 weeks? First
is Education and Labor Committee, chaired by Representative Bobby Scott, Democrat of Virginia.
Okay. Without
Virginia's always first.
Green. Marjorie
Decided,
Green,
his name isn't Lee, but, it's still Virginia.
Okay.
Wednesday is Transportation and Infrastructure.
Ooh, infrastructure.
And remember, America, it is always Impeachment and Infrastructure Week. Right. Always.
Excellent. Okay. Right. Transportation and Infrastructure. Who else gets together? That's 2.
Financial Services and Agriculture. They go Wednesday.
4. Okay.
Thursday is Small Business, Veterans Affairs, Energy, and Commerce. Friday is Oversight and Reform.
8.
And those are single days, but the biggest chunk goes to Ways and Means, and they're meeting Wednesday through Friday.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. They usually get the bulk of reconciliation work because usually a lot of tax package questions in there. Okay.
Right. And then from there, when those committees are done, then it goes to the Budget Committee.
Yes, all 9 send
and the Budget Committee combines it to a single package.
Yes. They can.
And then from there, it goes to the Rules Committee.
Right. Okay. So that's 10
and 11. They prep legislation, and then they get to vote. So a lot of this is going to be in the hands of people like Richie Neal.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, is he
going to
take like 6 months to do it, or is he going to move?
He's going to move, and he's also going to stick a child tax credit up to $3,000 for a child under 17, or a child under 6 gets $3,600 into the bill.
None of my kids
because he's the chair and he gets to do stuff.
Yeah. True, he gets to do that. He could have asked for Trump's tax returns.
Right.
He's famous for...
But he didn't. But he's going to do this
him
instead.
And Bruce
He's
Castor.
famous for what he didn't do.
Right. These 2 guys should get together. All right.
So that is all going on in the House. That's what I mean about parallel. It's not that the Senate is going to be doing a tremendous amount of stuff. I suppose they still have committees that are still being organized, right? Because they just signed the organizing resolution. But the House is going to be doing this, and they have a schedule, and they have to get it done.
Yes, and they're better at sticking to their schedule. Again, that does bring up the question of we're going to do this trial quickly and maybe without witnesses and wrap it all up because we have all this work to do, and it sounds like the House is doing that work. What's your problem?
Yeah, you got time. The House will do this, and then you just say yes. What's the problem?
Yeah, well, of course, they won't just do that, and they'll want to have their hands in it too, but... yeah, okay. Well, it's very interesting. They divided it up that way. 9 committees, and then committees number 10 and 11 will have their hands on it next week. But 9 committees going to wrap up their work this week. That's pretty quick. Yep. Nicely done.
It's ambitious, right? It's nicely done. Yeah. But again, you have to step back and look at the big picture here. Biden comes in. Everybody says the Republicans are going to obstruct, and this isn't going to... Oh, Georgia happens. All of a sudden, things may occur. And once that happened, all of the infighting, bickering, and stuff, which is still there, and it's going to happen at committee level, gets swept under the rug. And Pelosi says, no, we're going to do this. And the Senate, with Kamala Harris's help, and the House, go ahead and they pass a, what was it, a budget resolution? Forgive me, I'm not...
Yes, right.
With this. But anyway, they passed the first set of rules, which isn't specifically rules, I suppose, or the guideline, the framework of how this gets done, which even includes a 50-hour Senate vote-orama
Yeah, they didn't
meaning
go
they get to vote on tons of stuff. I think they had 40 votes. It didn't hit the record of 44.
Yeah.
But
Not
nonetheless,
bad.
they still got all of this stuff done, even though everybody was saying, well, Biden can't do this and Biden can't do that, and it's going to be difficult, and how could you govern when you only have one extra vote, like Kamala Harris? The answer is you can do it if you really get your act together.
Oh,
And the
wow.
Democrats have their act
wonder.
together, and they're fairly united, and they're getting this done. Typically what happens is the majority party wins and starts fighting amongst themselves, and the minority party coalesces against, I will stop whatever they want to do. So it's usually the minority party that's united, and the majority party not so much. It's the exact opposite this time. It's the majority party that's united, and the minority party is fighting amongst themselves over Trump in the Senate and Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House, which, by the way, is awfully interesting. Molly Jong-Fast noted one of Marjorie Taylor Greene's ridiculous tweets that she tends to do without the impact of a Donald J. Trump, because she's a backbencher.
When are they going to ban her?
But she tweeted, our Democrat-controlled tyrannical government will spend $438 million of your tax dollars to build a border wall around the Capitol and bring a National Guard, but they won't build you a wall or give you a no when domestic terrorists, Antifa and BLM attack you.
Uh-huh.
She tweeted. Molly Jong-Fast said, don't you have some committee work to do? Oh, wait.
No, right. Well, that was her tweet last week. She was marveling at how stupid it was to give her so much free time.
Right.
She's going to take that free time anyway.
You know,
She wasn't gonna
the
work
comparisons here aren't to Donald Trump. It's to Sarah Palin, Michelle Bachmann, Marsha Blackburn. You know, some of them are still with us, but basically have faded away in terms of importance. So really, they're still there. I have to pay attention to what they're saying. I mean, that's her
Blackburn
fate.
is. Yeah.
And so I'm not worried about her. You know, again, there was all this hand-wringing about, because Democrats hand-wring. It's all they do.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, you're going to make her
Ring.
prominent. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Who cares? She's an idiot. Expose her. There's a two-step process here, just like with Sarah Palin. First expose, then ignore.
Okay.
If you want to make fun of her in the middle, that's fine, but that's the
good.
process. The exposure's almost done. Now we get to the ignore part.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for that part. I would like to know whether is she not under consideration? Is Twitter not that concerned with her? Shouldn't they maybe ban her as well? They've banned a few more people since Trump, and some good calls.
The big one, Jim Hoft, was yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the Gateway pundit who is like an Alex Jones type conspiracy theorist. He's
Yes.
out. And if she keeps up on this, she'll be out too. And that's okay.
Good.
I mean, you know, but she's got,
let's
here's
hurry.
the rope. You gotta, you know, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I used to not maybe. I guess I didn't always think it was such an important thing. Sounded like a good idea, but I'm convinced by the Trump example. I mean, the world has been a different place, not just because he's gone. Even before he was gone, it was
Very quiet now.
Yes, it's been fantastic. And she's
Well,
got
hunting
partner
rabbits.
or whatever. Yeah, maybe we ought to step up pressure on that and get that job done. It would be very nice.
Yeah,
to
but,
get
but
her
stuff does happen, you know, and of course it's all due to the legal stuff, you know. The threat, and again, this is another area where Armando has expertise, but maybe the show today's impeachment. He ought to do a show just on suing people in the media.
Oh, well, it's become quite a sport now, yeah.
Well, you know, again, Adam Park-Mento with another good tweet. What time is Lou Dobbs on today? Oh, right, my bad.
Another good one. Right, deplatforming
Dobbs
turns out to
gets
look
kicked
pretty
off
good.
Fox Business. Why? Because Smartmatic threatened Fox Business with a $2.7 billion defamation suit, along with Jeanine Pirro and who else? Certainly a lot of people in Fox News, not Fox Business, are under threat. I can't remember which one is the Dominion and which one is the Smartmatic. But when you start doing billion-dollar defamation suits, all of a sudden they get their act together. Sean Hannity was saying, I don't know about this Margie Taylor, whoever she is, green person. She's not really a conservative.
Yeah. Well, good.
Really?
But I like to see them invalidated. I saw, what was it? Oh, yeah, right. On,
That's because of the money.
OAN network, or was it Fox? Or somebody has been panicking about that. Someone was who was interviewing?
Newsmax has been panicking.
Ah, that's the one. Yes. They were interviewing the pillow guy
because they have the My Pillow guy on, who looks just like Larry Sabato of Charlotte, Seville fame. And in fact, Larry Sabato has volunteered to play My Pillow guy in the movie because they look almost exactly alike.
That might work.
And he'd like to, just as David Hogg started is threatening to start a pillow company.
Yes, I saw that.
Larry Sabato would like to start a pillow company called My Larry Pillow.
I guess. Well, we should all start a pillow company.
Find mine. I all look the same. Just I'm better looking than him, but he looks sort of vaguely like me. So buy my pillow.
Sure, why not? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not certain what David Hogg was thinking, but I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have said you could make $1 billion on pillows ever, but. My Pillow guy, he did it. I don't know how, but
so My Pillow guy literally got the hook from the anchor at Newsmax who panicked.
Well, he hooked
about
himself.
Getting sued, and then started reading a lawyerly, you can't be saying this because we don't approve of any of this stuff.
Right over him.
So Newsmax panicked. OANN did not, because OANN actually sponsored the My Pillow guy's 3-hour I'm going to show you the truth video.
Yes.
With, I think, a 4-day disclaimer before they showed the 3-hour
it was
piece.
It was quite
so again, this is Armando's expertise. This is his wheelhouse, but the whole thing seems pretty clear to me. You can't shame them into stopping, but you can sue them into stopping when you've crossed the line, and this is a line, in fact, they have crossed. And again, when you go back to the whole structure here, whereas our political system sucks so much that Republicans feel impunity to defend the United States against aggression from within, the legal profession and the courts have held up, and all the stuff that Trump has brought as suits has been thrown out, and in fact, suits against them are starting to crop up. So, things are good on the legal side.
Yeah, I hope so. And I guess maybe the one thing that might be good if it actually comes together of a quick impeachment trial, if it could be followed up quickly with some actual courtroom trials, it would be very nice. You can't get away that easily there, but I don't see that shaping up yet. But all right, we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. My Pillow. I guess I don't know. We're gonna start. I said I'm gonna wait and see, and if David Hogg makes any money whatsoever with, I guess we should launch a pillow if it works. Yeah. I guess you figure that there's no room in the market at once. 2 or 3 other.
Well, Andy Warhol was right. Everybody needs 15 minutes of offering their own pillow.
I guess so. I had no idea that it was such a popular idea. I mean, everybody needs pillows. It's true, but. All right. Well, anyway,
everybody has to sleep. So
that's true.
Let's continue with our media-themed idea for the moment. Here's something else that's happened. The Daily Mail. Others have reported it, but I happen to get this from the Daily Mail in England.
Daily Mail.
Parler offered Donald Trump a 40% stake in the company while he was president if he agreed to post content on the app 4 hours before uploading the same messages to Twitter and Facebook. So when Twitter banned him, people said, well, he'll just go to Parler.
That's what I thought.
Before Parler started to get cut off. But he didn't.
Yeah.
Why didn't he? Because he was negotiating on trying to get a stake in the company before he would post there.
That's interesting. So, all right, I had heard the story originally that it was something he was demanding. He was demanding a stake in it, but maybe they offered it to him and he didn't think it was enough and he was negotiating. So what an interesting, I don't know what to say. I mean, so they offered him 40%.
Doesn't sound ethical to me personally, but hey.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that he didn't say, sure, I'll take it. And like, why not? And so was it that he was holding out for more? How much
The
more
story
could they give
originally
you?
was in BuzzFeed's news. This is the Parler a take from the Daily Mail.
Okay.
Parler was in talks with Trump Organization about a possible ownership stake, according to BuzzFeed News.
Insane.
The app wanted then President Trump to post content in order to boost traffic.
Yeah, sure.
Trump was offered 40% stake in the company if he made Parler his primary app. The proposal required Trump to post on Parler 4 hours before going to other apps. The deal fell through after, quote, White House lawyers said it violated ethics rules.
Oh, well, what did he listen to that for?
Parler bills itself as a platform of free expression with less content moderation. And after the January 6th riots, Trump was banned by Twitter, Facebook, and a bunch of other places.
Well, yeah, maybe the negotiation was over the 4-hour lead time. I could see him objecting to that. He wants to get his word out immediately, and 4 hours is quite a lot. But I can't imagine him not. Well, I can't imagine him not taking it because the White House lawyers said don't. But
right. Parler, according to this story, was represented in the talks by two of its prominent shareholders, Fox News commentator and Trump backer Dan Bongino, and Jeffrey Warnick, one of Parler's earliest investors. The president was never part of the discussion, Trump's former campaign manager Brad Parscale said.
That might even
and the
be
discussions
true.
were never that substantive. And this is one of the many things the campaign was looking into to deal with the cancel culture of Silicon Valley, they said.
I might believe them about him not being involved because, again, if they're offering him 40% in the company, I can't believe he doesn't take the deal if he knows the deal is out there.
Right.
With the
So,
exception
you know,
of the 4-hour window. Okay.
This isn't like Major, you got to impeach him over this because, you know, the details are sketchy and it's not clear how much he was really involved. But the idea that the Trump Organization would be involved, sure, absolutely.
Why? He didn't own any of that. I thought that was his son's.
They're as slimy as they come, and they're worried about their future because all the money's going to dry up because who cares about the Trump Hotel anymore? Well, I'll tell you who cares about the Trump Hotel.
Oh.
The Trump Hotel is tripling their rates for March 6th because now that's become the secret QAnon date for when the real second inauguration is going to happen.
Yeah.
And since that's flying around on the web, and nobody stays at the Trump Hotel, they decided to triple the rates for that day.
Okay. Yeah, March 4th, I think, is the date that they've targeted for that. That's what I just saw. And I guess that's the old inauguration date back from, I don't remember when they changed it, but before they amended the Constitution to inaugurate the president in January. The original design was an inauguration in March because it used to take 1 million years to get places by stagecoach or whatever, and horseback. So, yeah, all right. So now I guess that's their thought. Oh, well, we're going back to the original part. The constitutional amendment that changed things has been either secretly invalidated or whatever. And, you know, how there's a little bit of sovereign citizen tinge now to the QAnon thing. And they had to find something, I guess, to keep going with. Okay.
Right, speaking of QAnon,
good.
I do not want to unfairly pay no attention to Lauren Boebert while we pay attention to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene has a lot of money, by the way.
Get a 40% stake in her. Greene, yeah.
Boebert is broke.
Right.
Why is that important? Because Representative Boebert paid off nearly $20,000 in state tax liens on her gun restaurant in 2020 by charging mileage. I think we talked about this on Thursday.
Did we get to it? All right. I am not
But
certain.
if we didn't get to it, I don't even remember. Because,
yes, right. We talked about how far around the world she had to drive.
Yeah, exactly. But it turns out there's more detail here from this story from the Colorado Newsline. Between August 2016 and February 2020, Shooter's Grill, the gun-themed rifle restaurant owned by Boebert, accumulated 8 liens for non-payment of unemployment insurance premiums, according to records in the Garfield County Clerk and Recorder's Office. And the liens, filed by the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, remember, she's a scofflaw just like Trump, indicate that Shooter's Grill was delinquent on UI premiums dating back to its oopening in 2013. She was always a scofflaw.
Yeah, interesting.
By early 2020, Boebert's restaurant owed the state $19,552.86. And 3 of the liens, totaling $553 were satisfied and released. The remaining 5, totaling $18,999, were satisfied on October 22nd, 2020. And Boebert didn't respond to multiple requests or comment for what led to the liens being filed or how they were paid off.
Okay. So essentially she opened her restaurant in 2013 and never paid unemployment insurance taxes until she was elected to Congress, and somebody told her, oh, there's going to be a massive scandal for you. You got to pay them. So then she needed a way to pay them, and then possibly coincidentally
created a massive scandal with doing it. A nonpartisan ethics watchdog group, Accountable U.S., submitted a formal request to the Office of Congressional Ethics on Thursday, asking for an investigation into what it called exorbitant mileage disbursements to Boebert from her campaign.
Yes.
Now, I have a question for you. Does the Ethics Committee then say, oh, but this happened before she was actually in Congress, so it's not our purview?
Well, one half of the Ethics Committee certainly will. You know that they're evenly divided between the parties.
Because that's what they did with Marjorie Taylor Greene. They said, we don't have to do this because it happened before, which is crazy. I'm going to kill you as soon as I get there. Well, okay, but fine. You said that before you got here, so it doesn't really count.
Yeah, I mean, there's a realm in which that makes a certain amount of sense, and what that ordinarily, I guess the design is, well, we won't touch it because she did it before she was in Congress, but that just means that it should be a criminal referral, and one, I guess the FEC should look at that, and then two, I guess the U.S. Attorney for Colorado should pick up the rest of the case, or the public.
Well, in general, though, are campaign shenanigans subject to the Ethics Committee, or do they always say, well, it's before you got here?
They don't always say that. No. So
you mean there's a precedent for looking?
Yeah. I think I'm not that familiar with what they do over at the Ethics Committee because it's usually nothing.
That's because they don't do anything. I'm an expert on that.
So
I'll tell you right now, they don't do anything.
I don't think that that's a bar to their looking, especially when it happens so close. You've been nominated, and I don't know. It's not just the nomination, of course, that will do it. But if you end up there, the Ethics Committee obviously won't take up the case of somebody who lost. But, I don't know. I'm sure they'll throw that up in the face of the committee, and they'll have to fight through it. But there are, of course, other authorities that could pick up this case and make a criminal proceeding out of it if they want to. I don't think that the amount of money involved is, to the minds of the people who are in charge of whether or not to file criminal cases, large enough to worry about a great deal. The rest of us, I'd like to have that $20,000. She would like to have that $20,000. It was interesting, though, that she, one, was motivated finally to pay her taxes by the thought of scandal, and two, immediately came up with a scheme to do it. People have been donating to my campaign. What a bunch of idiots. I'll take that money and pay my taxes. I wonder how many people were laid off. I think she was among the restaurant owners to take the opportunity to complain and grouse about restaurant closures during the pandemic and how terrible it is that she had to lay off employees. And I wonder if they were trying to collect unemployment insurance while they were closed, only to find out that, their employer had never paid the premiums. But that doesn't stop them from being able to collect. It's not their fault. But how interesting that she would be complaining and crying and mewling about how much money she was losing because of the tyranny of the state government, which she wasn't paying for. Very interesting. Okay, well,
I'm going to give you a couple of stories that go together. We don't necessarily have to delve into the stories themselves, but I think it's just helpful to give you an idea of the zeitgeist overall of the big picture writ large about how politics is going these days. This one is from The Hill by Brad Bannon. It's called AOC is an asset for Democrats. Green is an albatross for the GOP. So the asset and the albatross reads like a Le Carre novel. And, it's I don't know, Fat Man and Little Boy. I mean, they go together, right? So AOC is an asset for Democrats because she's articulate. She speaks well to reaching people when she does her Instagram thing. Her comments are based on knowledge and science. And she is, as we often talk about on this show, turning out to be an advocate that is to say, working within the system to try to get stuff done. Marjorie Taylor Greene turns out to be, in her own way, an activist, completely uninterested in how the system works, in fact, thumbing her nose at the system, and then using thumbing her nose at the system to try to raise money.
Right.
So
and then wiping her
if she
thumb
continues on that, again, the next step, it's pretty obvious to me, the House can't get rid of her because it's a 2/3 vote and they don't have the will to do that. But there's no reason why they can't take staff away from her.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering about that. Now that she has no committee assignments, I wondered whether they diminish her office allowance at all.
Exactly. You can have your office in the closet over there and you have no staff. And by the way, we don't have to pay for your telephone. You pay for it yourself. So, there are things that they could still do if they want to. And if she keeps on this way, they may get there.
Yeah.
The other companion story that goes with that is in the New York Times, why Chuck Schumer is cozying up to the AOC wing of his party. Again, for the zeitgeist. As he prepares for an impeachment trial this week, Senator Chuck Schumer is at the height of his political power in Washington, second only, of course, to Joe Manchin. At home in New York, he's taking steps to head off a primary challenge from the left. And AOC basically says it's good to threaten him with primary, but she probably won't because, again, she's an advocate, not an activist. And things will just go fine there while he tries to keep his 50+1 majority together to get stuff done.
Early warning on that one when we looked at her leadership PAC and what she was doing with it and who she was donating to. An awful lot of the money from her leadership PAC was going to state Senate races in New York, which, made some sense, and then started raising flags here and probably for other people. Does this mean she's thinking about running for statewide office in New York? And if so, which one? So I guess that's that's good. It works nicely that way, and money well spent. I guess if it makes Chuck Schumer more, if it ever makes him more like her, or reach out to her base or approach problems from her perspective, it seems like a good thing to spend your money on.
Right, and whether it makes him more like her or whether it makes him more like her rather than just love her, that's fine. There's something about the Overton window that actually works at times, and this is one of those things. And while all this is going on, the wind behind Biden's sails is this. 2/3 of Americans approve of Biden's COVID-19 response, according to the ABC poll that came out over the weekend. The new president is on steady footing after more than 2 weeks in office. Basically, everybody likes what he's doing. His approval rating is high 50s, low 60s, area that Trump had no idea of other than reading about it, which he doesn't do. So unless somebody drew him a cartoon about approval rating of 60%, he'd have no idea what that means. Biden is doing just fine.
Okay.
And as he tries to keep his 50 Senate +1 majority together and get things done in a very close House, the fact that the public truly approves of what he's doing is a big help to him.
Yeah,
so he doesn't have to battle everything at the same time on all fronts.
Yes, nice.
This is an ABC News Ipsos poll. Putting the new commander-in-chief on steady footing after more than 2 weeks in office. Notice how they subtly work in the fact that he's president, he's commander-in-chief, he's popular. This is all zeitgeist stuff, but it does permeate the background behind senators refusing to touch Trump.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, the public is behind Biden. And whether or not the impeachment helps that, hurts that, interferes with that, or distracts from that, the public is behind Biden. And it's behind what he's doing. And that message is not going to be lost on senators as they try to save their own political skins.
Okay.
It isn't just, we have to placate the Republican base, because we always do that because we never really think about it any other way.
Well, it feels that way.
Right. This is a story in Vanity Fair, speaking of COVID, a huge potential for chaos. How the COVID-19 vaccine rollout was hobbled by turf wars and magical thinking.
Was it?
It's a long article I haven't really gotten to yet, but there's one piece in Scanning It. Let me give it to you because I hadn't put it in the
sure.
The queue there yet.
We would get to this.
Was just an idea of how things are going. January 5th, the day before an angry mob invaded the U.S. Capitol and called them to be hanged for disloyalty.
Yeah.
And remember, there's a Senate runoff election happening in Georgia. Vice President Mike Pence convened his long-suffering COVID-19 task force at the White House to address a vaccine rollout that had devolved into chaos. Again, when you're thinking of how the
noticing.
vaccine rollout's going now, remember where it's coming from. On the agenda was a long list of concerns, from expanding eligibility for the shots to releasing second doses, which until then had been held back. And among those attendants, Deborah Birx, Robert Redfield from CDC, and the person most responsible for the rollout, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, was not there. He was missing.
Oh, had he resigned yet? Maybe not.
No. Along with the Secretary of Defense, he was in charge of Operation Warp Speed. So where was he? 60 miles away inside a secure situation room at Camp David with a dueling process while they were busy conducting their own analysis of the rollout.
Oh.
At least one blindsided White House task force member was shocked upon learning of the separate meeting. That was probably Deborah Birx. She talks to the press all the time. The bureaucratic brinksmanship of the dueling meetings would be laughable if the stakes weren't so high. So that gives you an idea of how everything was going. Azar is on one page dealing with the White House directly. Everybody under him is meeting somewhere else. He doesn't talk to them. They don't talk to him. Nobody knows what's going on. And the whole thing is a complete waste of time under Mike Pence.
Okay. That has not been good.
And so, you get to the White House, I can imagine the Biden people saying, so what's going on here? And the answer is, well, it depends who you ask.
I guess.
You want to talk to this group over here who's doing this, or that group over there who was doing that. And then there's Jared, who was having his own group over here. And then there's this people over here who was trying to sabotage what that people would, And basically the whole thing is about backstabbing, infighting, and absolutely nobody being in the least bit concerned about whether vaccine actually gets into people's arms.
No,
remember, the whole Operation Warp Speed from the point of view of the federal government under Donald Trump was, we have to help manufacturers manufacture this stuff.
Yes.
How it gets in your arm is not our concern and not our problem. It's your problem, and if it doesn't work, we're going to blame you. That was their philosophy. They carried it out to a T, and it didn't get into people's arms.
All right. Well, I guess that's to be expected. I don't know. Does the article mention what Jared was up to at the time? And that's a good assumption that he's always doing something.
I don't know, but it brings up our favorite
by that
guy,
point.
Paul Mango.
Oh, all right. As long as Mango is in it, then I'll read it.
They had a theory of the case. They had press releases, said the Biden team member. They did not have a plan to deliver 600 million shots in record time. No. Interviews with more than 20 people with knowledge of Operation Warp Speed's activities and a review of dozens of internal emails and documents indicates the rollout was plagued by turf wars, infighting, Trumpian overpromises, a culture clash between military and public health, and a blinkered military focus on delivering vaccines to states instead of vaccinations to citizens. The failure to plan for the last mile has left Americans desperately navigating a chaotic online wilderness to score elusive vaccination shots in a maddeningly uneven rollout that changes from hour to hour and county to county.
Yeah.
Paul Mango called that characterization bunch of bullshit.
Oh.
Mango, the former HHS Deputy Chief of Staff under Azar, played a central role in coordinating Operation Warp Speed. He defended the program's handling of the pharmacies. We reviewed the business plans. We visited their CEOs.
Oh. So I guess it's done. I visited your CEO. Right. What happened?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you. The vaccine thing, I don't know. Is it fixable? We'll find out. I guess.
Well, so here's the thing. We have all these variants coming. The number of cases is dropping. The number of hospitalizations is dropping. Deaths are staying a little steadier, but they'll be starting to drop too because it's all part and parcel of the lag time that we always talk about here. Things are getting better. By April, there ought to be enough vaccine to really start having many, many more people, and that's only 2 months away, get vaccinated, but the variants are catching up, and so it's a race against time to do that. But right now, most states, and I'm using Connecticut as an example, the one I'm most familiar with, have a reasonably straightforward system of getting vaccine into people, but not enough vaccine to do it. Again, that should change by April. Right now, for example, in Connecticut, if you're over 75, you can sign up, and Connecticut's doing a pretty good job of getting vaccines into people's arms, and they do it a variety of ways. If you're over 65, like I am, you've been promised that you're next, but that promise has been for a month because, there's not enough vaccine, so you can't actually pre-register yet, and that's what they have you do. You pre-register, and then you get your appointment. If you don't know how to use computers, there are people to help you. If you don't speak English, there are people to help you, but it's very difficult to do online if you're in those two latter groups. And so, that's part of the problem here. Florida's doing it a completely different way. They're trying to, use Publix and commercial entities to do their job for them.
Yes.
Other states are doing it a different way. West Virginia's doing better. Other states are doing worse.
Alaska,
but it really is a Wild West, chaotic situation here that Trump left everybody with. And it's very, it's like you came into the job and found that Obamacare had you go to these websites to try to register, only the websites weren't working, and now it's your problem. Go. You can't fix that in 2 hours.
No. And of course, they did have that problem. The website wasn't working, but then they stuck around and fixed it, which is, I guess, the big difference of things here.
Well, partly because it was their intent to make it work.
Yes, that's going to be a large part.
This would be the same thing, except saying, well, the site doesn't work. It's not our problem. Our job was to develop the site, not make it work. Man. That's your problem.
I guess so. It has been pretty chaotic. Some states have done better with it. That's nice, and there's a couple of interesting articles out there about why that might be. But speaking of the Florida situation and the way they were using Publix, the supermarket, with pharmacies in the store to distribute the vaccine. There were other partners, of course, but I did see over the weekend and just prior to the weekend. I got another interesting proximity of stories that I guess Publix got a particularly sweet deal in being able to distribute the vaccine, and that I guess at some point around the same time, the family who is the primary owner of Publix supermarkets also made some rather sizable donations to the various parts of the Republican Party apparatus, including major funding and underwriting for the rally at which Donald Trump appeared and sent people off to sack the Capitol. So, very interesting. I'd like to see whether they put a timeline together for that and whether, it might just be possible, because everything is possible with this gang, that that underwriting of the rally may have ended up being basically a kickback from the sweetheart deal that Florida gave to Publix to distribute the vaccine. We'll pay you X amount to do the exclusive distribution for at least the supermarket phase of things, and with the understanding that you're going to kick some of this back, and I'll help you figure out where to direct that money. Here's a good idea: insurrection. So I guess we could investigate that in the context of impeachment if anybody cared. But as you know, it's time to move on or something like that. We'll talk about that in the second hour. What a situation that could be.
Yeah. So that's basically one last comment I think I have time to get in here. Not? A really interesting. Now, I'm not a big football fan, and I didn't watch the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I just don't care. Yeah, Congratulations to those who won. Sorry about those who lost.
Whoever they may be.
But there were ads, and one of the most interesting thing about the Super Bowl is generally the ads. Now, this year, a lot of them were pulled, and a lot were not really running. But one ad that did run is a Bruce Springsteen ad.
I missed it, but a lot of people
called The Middle. So, I have it. It's on his Twitter feed. You can actually go look it up if you want to. But I do have this thread
All right.
By Reverend Phil Woodson talking about that ad. And one of the things is that Springsteen and his creative group are entirely responsible for it. But it's all about Welcome to the Center of the USA, with lots of iconography about small chapels. And it was Springsteen and Jeep. And Phil Woodson writes, Springsteen and Jeep created a Super Bowl advertisement that exalts and perpetuates right Christian nationalism.
Hey, don't do that.
Maybe more later on how the horrific use of religious and patriotic iconography perpetuates white supremacy. So he's got a whole thread with the visuals talking about that. Basically exalting the small chapel in the middle of Kansas, which if you're not a Christian or if you're not necessarily a white Christian, you might not feel as welcome there as these guys make you think you should be.
Not a lot of room in it.
And so it's an interesting, reaction to what people saw.
Yeah, it is interesting. Bruce Springsteen is an interesting character altogether. I mean, it now brings to mind, I remember commenting when I heard him. I was listening to somebody playing some of what he did at the inauguration on the radio, and just listening to him and his voice and like this accent that he's got. I'm like, I thought the famous thing about this guy was he was from New Jersey. What is this?
Yeah.
Why he's like got some sort of Midwestern. I mean, it's been kind of part of his costume the whole time, but yeah, what happened to New Jersey, man?
Well, the ad goes on to say, whoever you are, wherever you're from, it's what connects us, and we need that connection. We need the middle. And Reverend Phil Woodson says that the translation of that is Christianity is the middle. Wherever you are, wherever you're from, if you're not Christian, you're not connected. And if you're not connected, you're the problem.
Hey.
Right? The center is the place you must all move.
Right. In a Jeep. Just throw that in there.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. Now I guess I understand why everybody was grousing about this commercial. I thought it was like, oh, he's selling out kind of a thing, but...
Right. There's a chapel in Kansas standing in the exact center of the lower 48. It never closes. Translation, the sun shines on this Christian chapel. The center is preferable. The center is Christian. The Christian center is our goal.
And it's creamy and chewy as well.
Exactly.
Christian center. Okay. Well, that is odd. And
more taste, less calories. So, the whole thing was interesting and well worth watching the ad just for that. So that's my segment for today, and I'll be back on Wednesday. Very interested to see what Armando has to say.
Right. We're going to
I have an idea because I follow him on Twitter. But, we'll be back and we'll talk.
Okay, great. And on Wednesday we'll talk about how the first day of the impeachment trial went. So thanks for carrying us through. And now I'll put my feet up and let Armando carry me through the second hour, I guess. We'll see.
It's a great day. Welcome to Monday, Impeachment and Infrastructure Week.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We are back, and so we'll be speaking to Armando in the next hour or so, and I'm sure he's getting ready to call in, but I'm taking a look at this Springsteen thing. I guess, I don't know, now I really wish that we had set this up a little bit by talking a little bit more about the discussion we had at home. What was it, like, I don't know, last weekend, not this immediate past weekend, but I guess the weekend before, and I think we were driving and listening to the radio, and what was it? It was probably Howard Stern talking about the inauguration and the show and all that, and just playing little clips from it, and listening to Bruce Springsteen, New Jersey guy, talk. I don't remember what he was saying, but it was just generally, pablum on the stage at the inauguration, and I guess everybody was excited about the star power and the quality of who was turning out for the inauguration. But I don't know. Maybe they were doing so without really necessarily being in tune with what was really happening. Bruce Springsteen, I guess it could happen. I don't know how old he is, but he's been rich and famous for a long time. And, maybe he's just not that in touch with what's going on for the rest of us, despite the fact that, the whole image is, of course he's in touch with what's going on for all of us. He's the everyman. He's the working man. But, he's been sort of like putting on the airs of Midwesternism for a while now. We've been talking about that at home. Just that, not just Springsteen, but just the entertainers in general who were a part of the inauguration, just because the inauguration had just put him in front of us that brought it to mind. But between him and we were just talking about how Garth Brooks, does his thing and shows up. And what was it that they show up in costume? That they have a certain costume, even though this is an inaugural celebration. It's expected that Garth Brooks will show up to something like this, not only in a cowboy hat, because otherwise how would you know it's Garth Brooks, but in jeans as well, and nobody second guesses anything like, in years past. I don't know, if you were go back to, I don't know, like the Kennedy era, right, and the Camelot era, and you're having the inaugural ball, and the idea of the entertainers showing up in jeans was like ridiculous. That wouldn't have made any sense at the time, I guess. But also, that was like, it didn't really matter what you performed in on stage. You were to show up in a tuxedo. But then, of course, they were all performing in tuxedos at the time too. All right, Armando is with us, and still, I don't know, he's still shuffling about, getting comfortable, Armando? Or?
I just had one little thing happen, that's all. But I'm okay. I have some thoughts on both Garth Brooks and Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
So I can whine about them first.
Sure. Let's impeach them.
I don't think he should have worn jeans to that. He did. Who cares? It's not a big deal, but he shouldn't have worn jeans.
That's probably not a great idea. But
right. And in terms of
they were probably $500
doing that ad, well, hey.
Yeah, I'm sure he thought it was harmless.
He paid a lot of money, so I don't know. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's interesting. It's good for meta-analysis, and he's right. Who are we talking about here? Phil Woodson. I mean, I think the semiotic interpretation of it is correct.
Sure.
And
I don't know.
Springsteen
it's a
might
place
even
of
care.
Worship. It should have been non-denominational something.
Probably.
Maybe.
Whatever. I get.
Look, it was designed to sell Jeep cars. All right.
Yeah, I guess
it's a commercial.
Then they should have done it in the mountains. But okay.
I know, right? They should have had him drive up a mountain in a Jeep or something. I mean,
right.
Whatever. It actually, honestly, I bet he probably regrets doing it now because he's gotten a lot of flack for it.
I see there's a diner or what appears to be a diner in the spot as well, which, that's code too, right? Who's in diners. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying. And again, I would say this, it's an attempt to sell automobiles.
Well, yes, that's at bottom, that's true. So, yeah, I guess I'm not terribly wrapped up in it. And it's okay. I'm happy to delegate to Phil Woodson on that. Reverend Woodson, take it away. And I might even agree. But that's it.
No, he's not wrong. And, I understand Greg's point. I will tell you.
It happened. It's a
lot
thing.
of
we discuss it.
Bruce's management team is Jewish, so it's not as if, they didn't think about that. But, what the hell? I get it. Have at it.
Yeah.
Keep him up.
True. All good points. And
he's still counting his money.
Yeah, that's true. And I agree. He's probably there saying, well, I didn't think about it because this was pretty apple pie. But
yes,
maybe we should think about people who don't like apple pie or who are allergic to apple pie.
I think the place of worship thing is probably the strongest critique of it. That's maybe you just don't say it's Christian. You just say there's a place of worship or something.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to avoid it, and if you show it on the screen, which I think you're obligated to, right? Because you're talking about it. But it is pretty interesting. All right, we're covered.
All right. So now to my perpetual whine about impeachment.
Yes. Well, that's an important thing.
I think it is. I don't know that Democrats in the Senate think it is, though.
Not as much anymore. I guess they're sort of, they have a political view of things, and they know what the outcome is going to be, and they're adjusting accordingly. But
yeah, well, I mean, if that's the case,
but
if
they
that
could
was
be
their
drivers
calculus, they're only going to do it if they can convict. If that's the point, then just dismiss it tomorrow.
Yes. Then we'd all be really, really disappointed.
Right, but I'm just saying. I mean,
like it.
Okay, so what? So what's the argument? Well, this only really matters if we can actually convict them. So we're going to half at it. Forget if we can say ass anymore, but I just did.
All right, well, there you go. Now we're covered. Yeah, I think that's probably okay. I mean, I don't know what the continued resistance to the committee idea, though. It's been very entertaining watching people discover the availability of the committee. So when we impeach him the third time, we'll be able to do it that way.
Look, what is the argument? The real argument as a substantive matter, and if it was true, you'd have to take it seriously, which is you can't tie up the Senate for all this time. We've got important work to do. You got to do COVID relief. You got to finish the the cabinet nominations. You've got to put the government together. We've got to address this and we got to address that. Okay. You know what? I got to take those points seriously. Maybe we do have to not spend too much time on this. But you don't have that argument anymore. To the degree you ever had it, but now if everybody knows, they can do an impeachment committee.
Yeah.
And that permits the Senate as an institution, the full Senate, to continue its business for other committees to sit and do whatever they're going to do.
Right.
Then how's that argument even work? Isn't this really the best of all worlds in that, okay, we can take this seriously. We can develop the record. Somewhere down the line, you'll take 3 days to do the summary presentation after the Senate Impeachment Committee presents a thorough and comprehensive report of all the evidence that was taken, and the people brief, and then they spend a day doing their presentations, one side each maybe, or 3 days. The 3 days they're going to use now, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
You do that in, mid-March or April. I mean, as everybody says, we can't remove him anymore. He's gone.
Yeah.
So why do we have to have this trial this week in the full Senate?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, there's always the argument that, delaying too much diminishes the event in the public memory.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, but my answer to that argument, I'm glad you're playing devil's advocate with me because it gives me a chance to sharpen my arguments.
Okay.
You know what? We can have TV cameras in the impeachment committee.
Yes.
In fact, if you go to C-SPAN, David,
all right,
you can see the last impeachment trial, in essence, that was held in an impeachment committee. You can see all of it. It was 5 days.
Right.
5 days.
The judge. Okay.
For just some mealy-mouthed, nothing Louisiana judge. They took 5 days. Listened to 20 witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, there's.
So I guess that was more important than this one.
Well, supposedly, or I guess they would say, well, none of that really happened in the public eye. This is the argument among the prosecution team. Well, all of this happened.
It was
in front of
televised on C-SPAN live. So, okay, my question to you is: do you think CNN and MSNBC and maybe even Fox won't cover it? I'm pretty
Fox
confident
possibly.
they will.
Yeah, they may cut away a lot at Fox, but
sure, yeah. Oh, Fox will do what Fox does. But that's
it'll all be visible. Yes. I don't know.
And then you can have a recap of the day, and then I'm sure there'll be, frankly, it's going to dominate the news.
You would think.
So I don't buy that one either. Beyond that, you're saying it has to be in the full Senate to get attention. I don't think that's true. If anything, the full Senate won't have much attention because everybody paying attention to the committee, and maybe that's what they don't like. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not really. I don't know why they won't entertain the idea or dismiss it.
Here's how it could happen. I think we've talked about it before.
All right.
Today, and it probably has been filed already. I would have to check Twitter.
Oh, right.
Trump's brief in reply to the House brief. It was due today, I believe, at 10. Tomorrow at 10, the House has to file its response to that.
Right.
And then my understanding is that the Senate convenes at noon, and they will probably argue the question of jurisdiction, which they've already argued, but they're going to argue it again. And I don't know if they plan 2 hours or 3 hours or how many hours of argument, but there'll be an argument and there'll be a vote. Presumably it'll be pretty similar, 55-45 as it was, finding that there is jurisdiction. Of course, remember, and actually there's a great link that I sent out, and you probably are familiar with it, but it's a 1986 sort of, not just the Senate impeachment rules when they were adopted, but basically listing all the precedents related to each of the rules. And there's an
I haven't seen that.
unequivocal precedent is the following. The only vote in the impeachment process that requires more than a majority vote is the conviction
Okay, right.
vote. Everything else, and this is one of the reasons why disqualification is treated as a majority vote, because the precedents have said that every other vote is subject to majority. And why is that? Well, there is a finding that to the degree there is a laguna, an omission in the Senate impeachment rules to cover a situation, then the standing rules of the Senate would apply, i.e., including the right to debate, having to do cloture, all that nonsense. But that isn't true. The Senate impeachment rules covered it.
Okay.
And it's Rule 24, which you've heard me talk about before. Rule 24 says all orders and decisions are non-debatable and subject to the yeas and nays.
Okay.
That is no filibuster.
Yeah.
That is no argument, really. Here's the motion. Here's the order. Let's vote.
All right. Yeah,
and that's what you can do,
quick.
and that's how they have adopted impeachment committees in the past. Usually there's, it's a consent, whatever, but it has occasionally been somewhat disputed, and there's precedent that the Senate impeachment committee motion is subject to Rule 24, and therefore not subject to filibuster.
Okay, so that was, by the way, the one committee that they could have formed without waiting for an organizing resolution.
That's correct.
But that could have been the first committee formed, and it could be, I don't know. Actually, I don't know what their usual party distribution is, whether it's something that they do
6
equally.
6 and 6.
Okay.
6 and 6 is the way it's been done
so
traditionally.
Nothing would have stood in the way of organizing that weeks ago.
Literally 6 and 6. It's not even, you take the judiciary number and usually the majority, the party holding the majority has a majority of the Judiciary Committee.
Right. Well, that'll.
But it doesn't happen that way.
That'll please all the
6,
people
6.
who think of this as a judicial proceeding. Look, a jury of 12. Beautiful. I mean, that's not even the jury.
It's not even. They don't even make.
They're not.
They don't vote to convict or not.
They
in essence, they take evidence. That's what they do.
All the people who are busy, I will listen to all the evidence, and I will give you a full transcript of it, plus some analysis. 6 on this side will tell you what Republicans think of it, and 6 on this side will tell you what Democrats think of it. And you can read the whole thing yourself.
There wasn't a partisan split, but what they do, at least is what they did in the 2010 Thomas Porteous report, is they sort of give a general description, then they say, the House says this about that, and then Porteous says this about that.
All right, so it's just a trial report.
It literally
is
just gathering everything and for submission to the Senate.
All righty.
Including the full transcript
Not even
of all
a majority
all
or
the
minority
evidence
report.
presented. Now, if you actually, this is how nerdy and upset I am about all this. I actually watched a lot of the Porteous thing in the beginning. Of it was very trial-like.
Yeah.
Adam Schiff did an opening statement where he went through what he was going to prove and what the evidence was.
Sure.
And then what's his name? Goodlatte was his co-impeachment manager at the time. So he sort of went through some more detail. I mean, Schiff led the argument, and it's pretty clear why. Schiff is really good. He's a good trial lawyer. There's just no two ways about it.
But good point here that they are co-counsel here, a Republican and a Democrat, because everybody knows that this kind of behavior is impeachable and they should do something about it when it's
correct.
Judge Porteous.
Correct. It was a bipartisan impeachment, and an overwhelmingly bipartisan impeachment of Porteous. Funny thing is that
usually is.
The evidence was good, but it wasn't like slam dunk. There was arguments Porteous could make. Indeed, Porteous was represented by Jonathan Turley. And one of Turley's main arguments is that whatever he did, the Justice Department didn't even indict him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which was true. He was not indicted. He was never criminally indicted for what he did.
Okay.
And he committed crimes. There's just no doubt about it. Bribery and bankruptcy fraud and all sorts of things. I mean, it was pretty amazing. The guy had a gambling problem,
I see.
and he gambled a lot of money, and then he started getting paid stuff by fairly unscrupulous lawyers. And then when he had to file for bankruptcy because he couldn't get enough from the bribes, he admitted some things that had payments that were made. And he filed it under the first one under a fictitious name, which you cannot do. Of course, then he later fixed it because there was a public notification that so-and-so has filed for bankruptcy, right? And he didn't want that. It'd be embarrassing, whatever. I mean, but nonetheless, the guy committed crimes, but he wasn't indicted for whatever prudential reasons the Justice Department chose not to.
Okay.
They make those decisions. That's what they do. Sometimes they think it's worth it. Sometimes they think it's not. Sometimes they think they can prove the case easily. Whatever. But anyway, it just goes to show you. Turley knows that you don't need to have somebody indicted and criminally prosecuted in order to convict them in an impeachment trial.
Right, but that's what he had.
Because it happened to his client.
Yes, right. So now he should know better. But at the time, that's what you would argue, and it didn't work very well. And now he can argue something else.
I'm not questioning him arguing it at the time. It was
he
was being an advocate.
Sure.
Again, I didn't think he was really good, but I don't like the guy, so that's very subjective. I just thought Schiff was like really much better than him, just better organized, more persuasive. And again, there was nothing partisan about it. It was just arguing about this corrupt judge. And they took their time. In fact, there was a lot of pretrial discovery, by the way. From the time of the article was filed to the time the Senate the Senate committee convened its evidentiary hearing, which was a 5-day affair, had 4 months had gone by of pretrial discovery.
Well, that's quite a bit, yeah.
I'm just saying,
you
can do it.
Yeah.
And if you think it's important, you should do it.
Yes. I've not heard any. I just don't think they're addressing their reasons for not doing it. They're just saying, I don't know, we have a lot to do, or it's important to move quickly.
Well, let's be clear. Everyone's pretending they don't know this exists in the media.
It is weird.
And in the Senate. They're no one even addresses it.
Yeah.
The furthest it's gone is, a couple of law professors and Greg Sargent and John Dean mentioned it. But everyone else pretends like they don't even know it exists.
Yeah. I was hoping that maybe Claire McCaskill would speak up. She chaired that committee, and she's on Twitter and, still relatively connected. She gets herself on TV all the time. It would have been nice to have her saying, I don't know what they're talking about. I did it. Not only can they use a committee, I know because I chaired one. I chaired two, as a matter of fact.
Right. Well, Adam Schiff doesn't mention it either, and he tried the case.
That too. You were there, and it's like it's waking up from the Wizard of Oz thing. Turley and Schiff and McCaskill are on it. You were there, and you were there, and you were there. Oh,
there
was
a potential argument that, and I don't think it was a real argument, but maybe a prudential type of argument that if the Chief Justice was going to preside, is he going to preside in a committee? Right. I think he could.
Yeah, I guess. But
he's not presiding. So that argument doesn't matter anymore.
That's true. That would be an interesting thing. Would he preside over a committee? I mean, I certainly nothing that says he couldn't.
I mean, the thing is that they prepare a report and they do create a transcript. And then there's in essence, what you're going to see now, which is a couple of days of people summarizing the evidence and making their arguments, with the full Senate having, the benefit of looking up the transcript and reading the report or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So in essence, a lot of the things that people are worried about bogging down the Senate are done outside of the Senate. Now, is this a weird thing to see in a court? No. You know who does it this way? The Supreme Court, when it has state versus state cases. Remember, they have original jurisdiction on those cases, right? Florida versus Georgia, for boundaries and water rights and things like that. Well, they appoint a special master who basically serves as a committee to take the evidence and prepare reports, et cetera, et cetera. And then all that's presented to the Supreme Court, who then votes however they feel about it. But there is an evidentiary record that's created for the Supreme Court, not in the Supreme Court. It's created in a special master setting, and they do it like that all the time. It's not like, it's, I don't know, probably been 30, 40 state versus state cases in the last 50 years. So it's not anything new or different. This would be the same thing, it seems to me.
Yeah, I have no explanation for it. It's just we just didn't have enough time to do the, I guess the education that we would otherwise normally have done. But this is the same. It strikes me as the same pattern over and over again. That and it took years to convince them that they could change the rules or the interpretation of the rules around the filibuster. And they just spent the first couple of years saying, "You don't understand. That's not how it works. Everybody knows X, Y, Z, blah, blah."
Okay,
nice, thanks for coming. And the whole job was, I did a lot of work preparing people to go and meet with their senators or their Senate staff. Here's what you got to do. You're going to face this. They're going to say, no, that's not the way it works. You're going to have to make clear that you know how it works and cut through that and say, you're going to have to give me a better answer. You got to give me the answer that you would give a more knowledgeable person about procedure. You can't simply say, no, it takes 2/3 a vote to change the rules. No. Listen to me.
Well, as we all know now, and all it takes is 51 or 50 plus the vice president.
Yeah, right. So now we know that. But, it took several years to get people to understand that inside the Senate, outside the Senate, in the media. And here we just haven't had enough time, I guess, to break through. There's more than a couple of columns about, the fact that the committee procedure exists. We certainly could have done better, but it may take until the next impeachment before people really catch on with that. And we may never.
Next time we impeach a former president, do it in a committee.
Right. Everybody will say, "Oh, everybody knows that's how it works."
So 100 years from now, whoever is sitting in our seats will say, "Look, these guys said it, and we should have done it." Mm-hmm. I don't know. But I actually do think that I don't believe they don't know this. They do know this. Things like I'm hearing Schumer and McConnell are still negotiating the impeachment rules.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Why is Schumer negotiating impeachment rules with McConnell?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess to figure out.
It's fine to try, but you know what? No, this is what we want to do. We want to take it to a committee. McConnell, I don't want to do that.
Oh, well.
I said, okay, well, I guess we'll just vote it. I'll vote you then.
Yeah. That should be the extent of the negotiation.
I don't know what else to say. I said, you want to negotiate how long the committee sits. You want to negotiate the scope of who they can call as witness. You can do all those things and say, okay, well, let's argue about that. I'll listen to you. But if you're saying no to the committee at all, well, then what else am I going to do? We'll just outvote you, or we won't.
Would have been a great exercise for the organizing resolution. Tell you what, we'll just organize these committees one at a time, and we'll start with the impeachment.
Right, but let's be clear. I'm not asking anybody to break any rules. I'm not asking anybody to do something that is not allowed by the rules. Again, for better or worse, Rule 24 makes it clear that these decisions are not subject to filibuster. Mm-hmm. Again, I always point to, it was 1 year ago, right? The House impeachment managers, led by Schiff, wanted witnesses.
Right.
And there was a vote on it.
Right. But we were in the minority at that time.
Right. And we lost like 51 or 52 to 48.
Well, if we were in the majority, we would have had witnesses.
Okay. So if that rule was filibusterable, why didn't we filibuster it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Right.
But it was our motion, the reason we didn't is because it isn't filibusterable. Rule 24 is clear. All orders and decisions are subject to the yeas and nays.
Right. I don't know if it would have made any sense to filibuster it now that I think back. It was our own motion, but still, the option was there if we didn't like the outcome.
I see what you're saying. But no, wait a second. They needed to make a rule that there would be no witnesses. Remember, their original rule was the question of witnesses was not determined by the rules. someone had to basically adopt a rule that there will be no witnesses.
Yes.
And I will reverse it on you. There were witnesses in the Clinton impeachment.
True, right. I do remember that.
There was votes against from the Democrats, and they got outvoted. And there were witnesses.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how the procedure went and what the footing was for the question. But certainly, well, you've made the point. The rules on impeachment are very clear. No filibusters. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. Makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all of your support. We literally could not do this without you. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue talking about the impeachment, which begins, the trial beginning tomorrow with Armando. So, let's see.
Tomorrow, I believe you will see arguments on a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think you'll see the merits arguments tomorrow.
No, not yet, I imagine. Okay, so a revote of Rand Paul's foolish motion.
In essence,
but offered just perhaps by somebody else this time. Okay.
Well, it should be offered, and I assume will be offered by Trump's lawyers right away. Now, again, this is a nice reminder, and I'm glad Jake Tapper and some of these people are getting after him about it. In January of 2020, during the Ukraine impeachment, Senator Schumer, the current majority leader, insisted that not allowing witnesses would make the impeachment trial a sham and a grand tragedy.
Okay. What are we reading?
Okay. I mean, they're going to throw it in his face because he's just going to, I don't know. He's
what was
going to keep
Tapper? Jake Tapper, you said?
Yeah. He retweeted a guy named David Gellis.
Oh, okay.
Showing a clip of Schumer saying that. But I tell you, one of the things and the thing, of course, this is all politically coordinated. The House Democrats are not going to try to embarrass Senate Democrats. Mm-hmm. But are they going to let Senate Democrats embarrass them? It's a two-way street. I mean, look, they'll have a nice, slick video, right? And they'll show all the tweets and Trump talking and doing it, and they'll do their little presentation. They'll make a nice 1-hour video or whatever. But there's things that they don't have in the record. And I talked about this last week when you and I discussed it. And I still think the critical thing to understand is, what was Trump doing while the riots were ensuing?
Yes, okay, that would be very nice. And a lot of people say that's incredibly important.
I think it's incredibly important. And we also need to know what Trump was doing in terms of communicating with Republican senators to continue blocking the counting of the electoral votes in the joint session of Congress on January 6th. As we mentioned before, Mike Lee accidentally got calls from both Trump and Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani helpfully left a voicemail.
Does that mean Lee answered Trump's call?
Yeah, Trump actually got to him. He picked up, and I don't know if he spoke to Trump directly, but this is the president of the United States' office, whatever it was.
Pick up.
And they said, we're trying to speak with Senator Tuberville.
Yeah.
And Lee walked his phone over to Tuberville. Hey, it's the president for you.
All right. Famously disorganized president, lacking the numbers for people who are new. and he hands over the phone. That is interesting, too. And what time was that call, by the way? Do you know offhand?
That was around 7 p.m. They were
okay. So I'm just
all
curious
huddled,
because
still together down and wherever they were being huddled.
Yeah, I would just be very interested in what the conversation was. I mean, we know what the ask was. I'm just curious, like, what's the answer? Tuberville may not know the answer to give, but I mean, if I'm Mike Lee, let's say I'm on the line, and they're like, well, we need you to do more objections and more delay, and you got to stop the thing. And like, do you have the TV on, guy? Because, I mean, delay what? We're not doing anything because, the Capitol's been sacked. Like, later on, we'll go back, and I understand you would want perhaps some more delay, but I don't know if at the time he's calling, like, are you serious? We're not even close to coming back on the floor. There's all the delay you want. All you can eat.
No, it wasn't
buffet.
Enough delay. And again, remember what Rudy's message is. I need more time.
Yeah.
So I need you to object to 10 states.
Maybe at 7 p.m. they had some idea that they were about to clear out the Capitol at that point. So
right, they knew at that point someone probably had told them what was going on. Now, what's interesting as well is who did the president not call?
Yeah, but actually, for I guess now this makes more sense to me. At this point, he's now calling senators because I've just found out that the incursion, the insurrection, the assault on the Capitol, I guess, is going to fail.
Who told them, though?
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, maybe it was on TV. They
it
did
was
televise
on TV
pictures of people
You're
walking
right. So that's
peacefully
probably
out,
part of it,
stealing the podiums. So I guess once you see, well, they're not doing anything, and I guess that's good for the people who assaulted the Capitol and killed police officers. They're walking out free. That's nice. But that means we have to start delaying again now. So that's their reaction. The rest of the country is like, phew, the coup didn't work. And at the White House, they're like, damn, they're leaving.
Exactly. I mean, we can call it a coup. We can call it what you want. Here's what I would simplify it. And I think Marcy, as I've said before, has the best straight line. He was trying to get pressure Pence, intimidate Pence to do what he couldn't do. But Trump doesn't care. He doesn't know. He says, do it anyway.
All right.
And it didn't work. Right. So he got mad and he tweeted out, go get him, basically. Mike Pence let us down.
Right.
And the crowd was ignited and broke in. And what were they going to do? They were going to go get Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and all the people who were stealing the election, according to Trump.
Sure.
That was the goal, to stop it. Okay, so then what? He didn't stop this is why we need to know what he did in terms of trying to stop anything. Now, again, who did Trump talk to between 2 and 9? Who talked to Trump? We know Mike Pence apparently didn't hear from Trump. But Tommy Tuberville did.
Right. Well, maybe when, I know this is Mike Lee's phone, Tom, but maybe if you see Mike Pence, would you hand him the phone? Oh, yeah, I don't know where he is. He's
I'm
somewhere
pretty sure he had Mike Pence's telephone number.
You would think 4 years later.
Yeah,
though Pence could be saying,
talk
new
to
phone.
Mike Pence.
Who it is? Yeah. Right. Sure. No, he had no interest in. He never checks on anybody's welfare, so that's not surprising. But he also hated him.
How about this? I'm the president of the United States, and the Congress. There's an assault happening in Congress, and you've made this point otherwise, which is how come nobody at the White House was worried about some type of assault there? Well, because he's the guy who incited the insurrection, and he pointed at them where to go. Go there.
Right. Yeah, I mean that to me is obvious, right? The old
right. So things got out of hand. If you accept the Trump story, well, he didn't want them to break in and attack everybody. He just wanted them to intimidate everybody from the outside.
Yeah, well, all the more reason why you should be worried then.
All right. So exactly. So what happens? Well, guess what? They went further than you wanted them to go. So what are you doing about it? You're the president of the United States. You're still the president of the United States on that day. The vice president's in there. The senator pro tempore is in there. The Speaker of the House is in there. In essence, the line of succession to the office is there. And you don't even make a phone call? To see what needs to be done, what's happening? It's because you wanted it to happen, and you were enjoying what was happening. And then, at the end of the day, you said, you know what, this is my chance to stop this for today, and let's see what happens tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
We have to prove Trump's intent, at least to me. If you're going to treat this seriously, take it to the next level, the key has to be, marshaling the evidence that shows that not only did Trump want to do it, he was glad it happened, and he wanted to take advantage of it happening.
Yes. I guess we'll see how I think they're going to present that as an argument and offer some evidence for it, but I guess we're worried that...
Where's the evidence about what Trump was doing from 2 to 9?
I don't know. I mean, I guess what you were worried about last week, which is that they'll say, well, here are newspaper articles that say what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it would be much more powerful if you had, here's a person who was in the White House that day.
Right.
And he says this is what Trump was up to. Some of them are actually
I'll give you
interested in saying
evidence. The Vice President of the United States at the time can testify whether Trump ever spoke to him in those 7 hours.
Yeah. Right. Important to know.
He doesn't have to even sit for a deposition. We'll give you written questions. Yes or no questions. The easy ones. Did the President of the United States ever speak to you about this? During the day. So executive privilege. You know what? You don't have executive privilege anymore.
Yes, right.
You need to ask Joe Biden to assert it on your behalf.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And they would use that too. I imagine they would try and assert it, and then they'd be happy to have. They would actually litigate it. Well, that seems like an easy case. But
again, that's the whole point. I don't fear it. Listen, I understand the whole McGahn took 8 years stuff, and the courts failed. But in the first instance, McGahn is told he didn't actually assert it. He said, the president has told me to assert executive privilege. Mm-hmm. Right. Because the privilege didn't belong to McGahn, it belongs to the president.
Right.
Well, as everybody on the Trump team is telling me, he's not president anymore. So he doesn't have that privilege to assert.
Right.
Institutionally, you might expect the sitting president to try to defend that.
I don't know.
But go ask him.
I guess so. While you're there, do us a favor. Ask him my thing. Can I have the Trump presidential phone logs for that day?
Yeah, I believe that we should see those.
Yeah, and I mean, here Trump would probably. Now, what can Trump do there? I don't know. Can I protect him?
He can ask Joe Biden to assert the privilege for it.
Right.
And again, as an institutional matter, you might see the office of
you might say no.
The White House counsel to say, listen, as an institutional matter, we have to assert the privilege here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, of course, that privilege doesn't hold in a criminal investigation. So let's say there's a grand jury convened. In theory, it shouldn't hold in an impeachment proceeding, as we've been told, remember?
Yes.
All the arguments for why Bolton didn't have to testify during Ukraine and all these people. Right. In essence, there was a president fighting those things in court. Mm-hmm. To me, okay, you go to the district court and you assert it. And I'm the judge. I said, well, that's an interesting argument, but you're not the president. So what's your standing to assert it?
Mm-hmm.
If I was the president then, well, you're not, though.
Right.
So even then, think about how that looks. He's like, wait, you're no longer president. That's why you say you're not subject to impeachment, but now you're acting like you're the president still?
Yeah, well. I don't know. I don't know how well it works. I imagine they would say, well, the events we're talking about were during the time of my presidency. I ought to have some control over what gets released. Although, why, I don't know.
I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
The office holds the power, not you.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't recognize that, but even if he did, he would just argue.
Everybody else in court supposedly does.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we hope so. I mean, I guess to some extent it depends on the judges you draw. We've clearly seen that there are some wackos out there.
Well,
anyway, but not a lot.
It could be, but I think that's fairly standard that the president can waive executive privilege.
Yeah.
Right? And the inverse of that is he can assert executive privilege, and if the president doesn't assert it, then it's not a defense to whoever was talking to Trump from 2 to 9.
Yeah. It would make for an interesting set of arguments, because I think
look, I mean, here's the thing. Okay, those guys. There are other witnesses too that you'd want to take.
Yes,
and you know
all
what?
right.
You can do parallel stuff. You can take all the evidence you can take. You can keep going and waiting for the drop dead stuff, the tapes, if you will, of the case. And you know when the best forum to do that, where you're not holding up the entire Senate.
Yeah,
I'm circling back to the
right.
main argument, is an impeachment committee.
Yes, and you could take your time with it, and if they decided to drag things out, it wouldn't be as disruptive.
Well, the Senate's still doing its business. We're let's see what a district court says, and they go to appeal. We say, listen, it's an impeachment. Remember that decision when you said this doesn't work in an impeachment inquiry?
Yeah.
Well, I'm citing that to you, so this should be summarily decided. Expedite. We're in the middle of an impeachment process. Okay, say it takes 6 months. So what?
Yeah.
He's not in office anymore.
Right, so we're not dealing with that as the problem, and there are lots of other things that need to happen in the meantime, so they're happening in the Senate.
And again, I don't think I've discovered, penicillin here. This is not some great insight on my part. I think everybody knows this. There's a reason why they did the Porteous impeachment in committee. Because they weren't going to spend a whole week of Senate business, even though, there was no COVID crisis, whatever. It was 2010.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Well, I'm sure the thinking was generally this is going to be complicated. Not everybody knows the story of this. We got to develop a record, and honestly, nobody cares about this judge, and it would be absurd to stall the Senate for months to finish this trial of this judge nobody cares about. And
exactly.
So here people do care, yes, but it would also be absurd to stall the Senate for months, particularly given how litigious this guy is. He will, he might file all sorts of cases in the middle, or he'll make all sorts of motions that will slow things down. So it makes much more sense to put it in the Senate. And then it's odd too, though, that I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe they could still do it. There's nothing that says that they can't, and there's nothing that says they can't change directions in the 3 or 4 or 5 days that they might give to this thing either.
There are no adopted rules outside of the initial briefing schedule. How the trial itself is going to be conducted, nobody even knows, and it starts in theory tomorrow, right?
Yes, right, like you said,
with a pretrial motion. The Senate still doesn't, because Schumer's negotiating with McConnell.
I guess.
So as of today, you're the House impeachment manager, or you're Trump's lawyer. You don't even know the process right now.
Yeah. It is amazing how much they leave to the last minute.
I think that's insane. I mean, whatever your process is, the lawyers who are going to argue the case should know by now.
Yeah. Although, right. Yeah. I mean, if they move to the, I guess you could have alternative game plans, obviously, and say, well, with 3 days, I'll do this, and with a month, I'll do that.
Well, that's the House impeachment manager. In essence, the reporting is they've got a truncated way to do it and a more elaborate way to do it. But, one of the other things that I think is critical, at least for perspective and optics, is that House impeachment managers need to get Trump on the record as opposing witnesses. So they have to ask for some witnesses somehow, even in the full Senate trial, and have Trump say oppose. There's no need for witnesses. But they're also going to, I would assume, Trump's people are going to oppose using video and anything else.
Yeah, why not?
They're going to oppose evidence, right?
Yeah. I assume, like everything that they can. I don't think they have any evidence.
You make a motion to dismiss, fine, you lose, but then what? If presuming we lose, then what? Okay, well, what about evidence? Well, we would like to have witnesses. Okay, how many? No, we don't want any witnesses, says Trump. Or, maybe they do Lindsey Graham. We want Kamala Harris to be a witness because she fundraised for bail for BLM or something, whatever their argument is.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I think that's out of order and irrelevant and shouldn't be accepted as relevant to the case. But be that as it may, they can do any ask they want.
Yes.
The FBI, according to Lindsey Graham again.
Right.
Well, we're going to call in the FBI. It's okay, fine. Let's call in the FBI.
Yeah.
Again, you can trump all that stuff. Literally trump it by sending it to a committee. Again, that's to me all these little games and threats. And we're going to tie you up for months. So, all right, no, that's okay. We'll send it to committee then. And maybe Schumer's brilliant. He's waiting for them to do all that and says, okay, because of that, we're going to go to committee.
Yeah.
I doubt it, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, but I guess they could always reverse it. But
well, they haven't. There's nothing to reverse yet. There's no procedure at all.
Reverse what looks to be the course at this
point.
All right. Well, I don't know what to say other than maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
And I don't think there's time to pressure them into doing it that way. But I don't know. It has to be a much more high level pressure campaign from among
somebody needs to mention it as a possibility. One reporter besides Greg Sargent mentioned, hey, you know what? There's this Rule 11 in the Senate impeachment rules.
Yeah.
Just just address the existence of a rule in the Senate impeachment rules. I mean, honestly, as a reporter, it just seems to me, I find it hard to believe none of them even want to ask the question.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
It's fishy because I think by now they know that rule exists.
Yep. Well, they do, but they know that most people don't know, or even if they knew, a lot of people just don't know. Well, what would be the difference? Who cares?
Well,
they do it
but these are the same reporters who said the trial had to start on inauguration.
Oh yes, right. That's true. There is that. I mean, I assume they've learned. I don't know whether they've admitted, but. Clearly,
now, why did they think it? Just so they thought it because of the Senate impeachment rules. So they read up to Rule 2 or 3, I forget which one it was, that says it has to start immediately.
Maybe. Yeah, I was thinking that, that you were going to say, well, the reason they thought it was because somebody in the Senate told them, listen, I've read these things. I know you don't. You could read the rules. Go ahead, but your eyes will glaze over after Rule 2. By which point you will have read that this trial needs to start tomorrow, and you'll think that I'm right. I may only have read until Rule 2. I don't know who the source is. But like I said, very similar to the way it worked with the early years of filibuster reform, that for 3+ years, all they had to do in the Senate and the Senate offices and in speaking to the press, et cetera, talking to constituents, is say, no, you don't understand. That's not the way it works. Look here. The rule says it takes 2/3 to change the rules, and you're talking about some sort of weird voodoo magic. No. And it didn't matter who you were talking to. You could be talking to Biden's office when he was in the Senate at the time. You could be talking to Pat Leahy's office. There were like 5 Democratic senators who had gone through this before in 1975 and utilized this very same procedure, who still said, I don't know what you're talking about. No, everybody knows it takes 67. It's worse than 60. 67. No, wrong. You did this yourself. What?
Right.
I did.
I remember I remember all of that. The argument, and you were obviously right, and eventually they decided to realize you were right, though I think they realized it the whole time. Not the reporters. Right. I don't think the reporters knew, but I think the senators knew. Right. Sometimes you have a convenient excuse not to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what that was for them. Now, just a few minutes left, and you've let me rant and rave here, but I do want to just give a little bit of information. Today, either it's already come out or it should be coming out shortly, is Trump's response trial brief responding to the House brief. And two things to look at. Do they even respond on the factual side?
They haven't so
because
far.
If they just start disputing the facts, it seems to me, how do you avoid taking evidence? I think it becomes a big to-do. Maybe Schumer's waiting for that to see if evidence is in dispute. Mm-hmm. You will see, no doubt, the same quote, constitutional, unquote, jurisdiction arguments about former officials, the Belknap case, and all of that situation, and all the different law professors who have weighed in one way or the other on these things. And, I think that the argument that people have settled in on is the best one is, hey, he was impeached. And Article 1, Section 4 says the Senate will try all impeachments.
Right. It's
not discretionary. You got to try it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's all right. I don't mind it. I think there's a better structure context. Brian Kalt is the Michigan State University law professor who wrote about that issue in 2001 when nobody really was paying attention. He wrote like a 110-page law review article, which really explores everything. If you're bored and really want to look into it, that really to me bored. Is the most comprehensive piece on it, and it is very persuasive. I think that it's a pretty clear-cut issue. To me, the clincher has always been Warren Hastings was being impeached in England at the time.
110 pages of clear-cut analysis. Yeah, I get you. Do send us a link to that, by the way. I'll include that.
I will. I'll get you that. And if the Trump brief is filed by now, I'll send you that too.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
I do think that does he say Trump didn't? Yeah, do they dispute the facts? Becomes a kind of an interesting point. Because if they do, it just seems to me you have to look at evidence then, don't you?
Normally, yeah. But again, this is one of those things where you remember, oh gosh, we're not in a court. Shoot. They can do whatever they want.
That's correct. But at least in theory, that should be what comes. Then, of course, we've talked about what happens next. The House has a really short turnaround time, but they've got about 25 first-rate lawyers who will, I'm sure, whip out something very good in 24 hours.
Okay.
And then the Senate convenes, as I understand it, that afternoon tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, February 9th.
Yeah.
And my expectation, though, you could say that isn't necessarily what they're going to do. But, they asked for a specific briefing on the question of jurisdiction. So my belief is they will probably entertain a motion to dismiss from the Trump lawyers, which in essence already been opposed. The briefing's already there. And then, I don't know, they'll make speeches about what they briefed, and eventually the Senate will vote on it probably that night. And based on the Rand Paul situation, it'll probably be 55-45. Again, in theory, Portman could switch, but, either way, he does, he doesn't. The motion will be denied.
Okay.
So then they have to decide how they're going to conduct the trial itself, which they still have not done.
Yeah. We'll see whether they can figure something out and how quickly.
Well, everybody keeps talking about. The reporting is they're going to try to do it in 3 days.
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens. But the Trump's lawyers already asked that any proceedings not go past sundown on Friday for Sabbath. So,
yes, right. We found out that
sundown is probably 5:25, 5:30.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they won't flirt with that too much. But we found that out that Trump's attorneys claim that they'll be knocking off for the Jewish Sabbath at Friday evening. All right, fine. I don't think we have to be done by then. You can go.
I guess. I don't know if they need a special dispensation or something. They can get them.
I guess.
All right, I hear the music.
Right.
So anyway, let's see what happens. I will definitely send you some links for what we can talk
please
about.
Do let everybody read those things in case they can't sleep tonight in anticipation of tomorrow's trial action. They can read the 110-page review article about that. All right, and that's about. I guess we'll wrap it up today. I'll drop this one last minute piece of information for you. Congressman Ron Wright, Republican of Texas from the Arlington area, has died of COVID-19. So
Wow.
just thought I'd throw that in there.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, that one snuck up on me, but apparently, some background on that. Apparently, he learned of the diagnosis right after inauguration, so I wonder whether maybe it might have been contracted on the 6th, for all we know, or thereabouts anyway. But yeah, that's it. So second Republican elected to this Congress, the 117th, has died of COVID, but it's all a hoax, and we're only wearing this mask so I don't get fined, even though what's-his-name was wearing it over a can 95.
1% of Republican congressmen have died of COVID.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. Well, the statistics predicted it. They're exactly right. Still, 99% of them survived. Talk to you tomorrow.
From netrootsradio.com.
Oh, probably tomorrow.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, another day consumed by impeachment, but of course it's the hottest topic on the plate at the moment. But that's why we have the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next. Justice Putnam will update you on everything that I have skipped over to this point, and it looks like the usual buffet of fantastic stuff that you may have missed otherwise, so do stay tuned.